Hello, and welcome to this press conference from Solar Cookers International here at COP28. I'm Caitlin Hughes, the Executive Director, and I'm joined by Keith Wingard, the Strategic Partnerships Manager with Solar Cookers International. And today we're going to share about how solar cooking is related to some very exciting recent developments coming out of COP28. But first, Keith, can you share a little bit of background in terms of who Solar Cookers International is and how we work?
Sure, thanks, Caitlin. Solar Cookers International is a nonprofit organization based in the United States, but we work with countries around the world and partner organizations, governments, and other entities that are interested in promoting or implementing solar cooking as an alternative to traditional cooking methods to provide access to clean cooking solutions. Solar cookers or solar cook stoves are often a very simple technology that allows you to redirect sunlight, reflect off of a reflective material, and concentrate that sunlight to a black pot or inside of a box to create temperatures that are warm enough to heat and cook your food, all without relying on biomass, wood, charcoal, kerosene, or other fuels needed to cook foods. On the slide here we have a variety of models. The simplest model is what's referred to as a reflective panel cooker. This is often made out of a cardboard substrate with a reflective material on top. And you have a black pot in the center that absorbs the heat. Earlier this week, Solar Cookers International had an exhibit booth in the Blue Zone, and we had direct sunlight. So for several days, for a couple days, we were able to cook potatoes, bell peppers, carrots, some vegetables in a pot, and demonstrate for other COP attendees what a solar cooker can do. The second model in the middle is what's called a box oven cooker. For this model, again, you have a mirror that redirects the sunlight into a box that maintains the heat and allows for the cooking process to take place. Both the reflective panel cooker and the box oven cooker are what often are referred to as passive cooking technologies. So these cookers you can put out in the sun, direct them towards the sunlight, and allow your food to cook while you go and do other activities. So this allows for time saving. You can perhaps go do other household chores while your food is cooking, and you come back an hour, 2 hours later, and your rice, your beans, or potatoes are ready to eat. The third model is called a parabolic reflector cooker, and this one is very effective at concentrating sunlight to a central point, and so you can create much higher temperatures if you have that direct access to sunlight. The parabolic reflector is good for high temperature heating, active cooking, for things like frying foods as well. And then the other thing that we talk about as complementary technologies are retained heat baskets, which you can use to maintain cooking or maintain heat if you're trying to cook your food earlier in the day and then eat later in the evening. And then water pasteurization indicators, or WAPIs, which are used to indicate when the water that you're heating has reached a temperature sufficient to kill off microbes. So the solar cook stoves, solar cookers can also be used for treating water as well. There are also a few other models that we want to mention. There's something called a Fresnel lens, a Fresnel mirror, and then an evacuated tube. These are other designs that use the same basic concept, redirecting sunlight to create temperatures hot enough to heat and cook your food. All of this cooking is done with what's called solar thermal technology, or solar thermal methods. So there's no photovoltaics for these particular models. There's just direct sunlight that creates the temperature needed to cook foods. And Solar Cookers International, one more I'll also mention is institutional solar cooking. And this is at a large scale. This is a photo on a rooftop that is collecting sunlight, redirecting it towards a concentrator, and heating water in pipes that creates steam, and then the steam is channeled down to a kitchen below that allows for steam cooking. For example, in this photo, I believe there's some momos that are being cooked and ready to consume. This is more common in South Asia in particular, where they have rooftop systems and an abundance of sunshine. So institutional cooking is more of an infrastructure scale project where you can cook several thousand meals per day. For us as our organization, again as a nonprofit organization, we look to work with partners to scale up or expand awareness, interest, and opportunities to utilize solar cooking as a climate-friendly method for cooking food, which has a number of impacts on cook stove users. We talk typically about economic well-being, the cost savings from using solar cooking devices. We also talk about gender empowerment, since solar cooking is typically something that women and girls are primarily responsible for. That also is true of collecting wood and firewood. So cooking is disproportionately impacting women. And this is also an environmental issue in that in many countries around the world, the primary fuel source for cooking is wood or charcoal, which leads to forest loss, forest degradation, and deforestation as well. So all of these issues are highlighted in what we talk about when we talk about why it's important. And then the last one I'll mention is human health as well. When you're using wood or biomass to cook your food, there's household air pollution, including greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change, and black carbon as well that can impact respiratory health, eye health, and a number of other factors that are also a part of what we talk about when we talk about why it's important to consider solar cooking as an appropriate technology. What we actually do in our role is combine a couple different components. One is an advocacy role at events like COP28 here in Dubai, or other events where we can talk about the importance of clean cooking generally, and then solar cooking specifically as a solution that can be utilized in countries around the world. We work with countries to develop capacity to manufacture cook stoves locally. So capacity building is a second component of what we do. We are also involved in research as well. So our team at Solar Cookers International has worked with the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, to develop standards for clean cooking, specifically for solar cooking. And we have developed what's called the performance evaluation process to test cook stove products, solar cook stove products, to determine their efficacy. So all of these combine together to help increase the environment, the ecosystem for establishing solar cooking to contribute to improving the access to clean cooking in countries around the world.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Keith, for sharing more about that. And just maybe I'll go back for a minute to touch more on in terms of our intersection with advocacy. So there is increasing recognition of the interconnectedness of climate and health. So there's been an exciting development coming out of COP28 that 124 countries, including the United States, which is where Solar Cookers International is based, although we do have collaborators in over 135 countries. But those countries, those 124 countries, have endorsed the COP28 Political Declaration for Climate and Health. So Keith, I know you touched a little bit on the health impacts of solar cooking or the alternative of cooking over an open fire. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so I had mentioned what's referred to as indoor air pollution in my earlier comments, and I think that's the critical piece here. Indoor air pollution contributes to a range of diseases and has a high morbidity. It's actually the number one cause of non-communicable deaths around the world. So this is something that is impacting human health and well-being at a large scale And it's particularly acute in countries that are still looking for ways to increase their access to electricity. So many countries that have a limited reliability or access to electricity are still relying on biomass of different sorts, wood, charcoal, kerosene, sometimes even agricultural waste as the cooking fuel. And those cooking fuel sources, when they're burned, create smoke. I'm sure many of you out there have seen an open fire. Imagine a kitchen where that open fire is being burned every day, and there are families that are using that cooking fire to cook food every single day. That over time can create detrimental health effects for a number of reasons. And so what solar cooking can do is help reduce that reliance on wood and charcoal. Solar cooking is not a perfect solution in any way. It's what we like to refer to as an integrated cooking solution. You'll still need to cook some of your meals with other cooking technologies, but solar cooking can be a significantly beneficial component when cooking food because it relies on direct sunlight, and if you have direct sunlight, then you can cook food for that day without any cost or fuel source. So if you have that solar cook stove, you can take advantage of that sunlight. You can take advantage of that freely available sunshine. It's also something that I'll add. A lot of these health problems are in countries that do have an abundance of sunlight. So it's a good fit for many countries around the world, and it's also a particularly good fit for off-grid solutions. It can be complementary to off-grid solar systems or off-grid lighting, and then you have a solar cook stove as well that can complement those simple off-grid technologies, which often are rural populations. So it's an aspect of finding the right way to get these kinds of solar cook stoves, solar cooking solutions to those sometimes hard to reach communities that are in rural areas, but are the ones that can have some significant benefit from cooking their meals with solar cook stoves of a number of different varieties.
Thanks, Keith. And I'll just add there's also a very strong gender component as well. So in terms of maternal health, because if a woman is cooking over an open fire and she's expecting, there's more likely to be miscarriages, preterm birth, as we said, even risk of death for the mother herself. So you're seeing those generational impacts. But with solar cooking, there's no emissions, so it's already setting up that next generation for success and helping to ensure healthy families. So along those lines, Keith, another exciting piece of news coming out of COP28 is the Declaration on Climate, Relief, Recovery, and Peace, which is a collective commitment to increase investment and actions in communities affected by conflict, fragility, and human crises. 70 governments, including the United States, have signed on to this already. So can you share a little bit more about how solutions like solar cooking are imperative for reducing conflict over natural resources and strengthening resilience?
Yeah, sure. One of Solar Cookers International's capacity building programs, one of our partnerships with our local implementing partners in Kenya, at the Kakuma refugee camp in northern Kenya. And this is a region that has a very large refugee camp because of the conflict in other countries around northern Kenya, which means a lot of people have had to flee for one reason or another, or have faced security situations that have led to displaced populations. Which means there are a lot of people living in a concentrated area trying to establish a new home or a new life, and often arriving with limited resources. One of the things that has been seen around Kakuma is a reliance on forests, on trees, for meeting the cooking needs for a large amount of people. To the extent where it was taking longer and longer for people to go out and try to collect firewood. In response to the concerns around forest degradation, the Kenyan government passed legislation to make it illegal to collect firewood to try to maintain forest cover. So by trying to address an environmental issue, now you're affecting the social component of needing to address how people are going to cook food with an affordable fuel source. With this component of how to collect fuel, there have been examples of conflict between refugee communities and host population communities around access to those forest resources, which have led to a conflict and strife. And then there's also been examples that we've heard about where those have led to situations where there have been women or girls that have gone out to collect firewood and that have been injured or have been attacked by host country populations. So one of the things that we think is important is finding ways to decrease that demand on the forest resources. And one way that can happen is to provide or to have access to a solar cook stove. So this example in Kenya that I was just mentioning, we've worked with local partners to develop local manufacturing capacity in Kenya. There's an institutional workshop that has basic woodworking and metalworking skills. And they have taken an open source design that's freely available on the internet. Solar Cookers International maintains our own webpage about our own organization and a second companion website called the Solar Cooking Wiki, which has a number of open source design plans for a number of different types of solar cookers. For this particular solar cook stove, the U-log box oven model, it's been adapted slightly to allow for local materials to manufacture the box ovens. They're then transported to northern Kenya, and the refugee populations that are participating in the program go through a training program to allow them to understand how to utilize the box ovens effectively and to understand how these box ovens can be used to, again, reduce that reliance on wood, charcoal, or other natural forest resources. So this is kind of the component that we look at is trying to decrease that potential for conflict, and then after conflict has happened, try to create and support those families to have the resiliency and adapt to a lifestyle that allows for cooking without such a strong demand on the forest environment.
Thanks, Keith. And I know you actually had a chance to speak with a lot of the women who are now solar cooks and hear their stories. So I was wondering if you could just share some of the things that you heard in terms of their experience and what it's been like, both the challenges and the positive impacts of solar cooking.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the question. I was fortunate enough to travel to Kenya a couple months ago for the Africa Climate Conference in Nairobi, and then had an opportunity to travel up to Kakuma as well with our local implementing partner. We had an opportunity to do some interviews with some of the users, some of the cookstove users that have been part of the program the last few years. And it was eye-opening to hear directly from those users what the cooking situation has been like and how that affects their everyday life. We talked to mostly women that have been responsible for cooking, and we asked some simple questions to get a better sense of what it's like to live in a refugee camp and to rely on wood or biomass for cooking. And I think the thing that I heard the most was, this is helping me. It's something that I can use regularly when I have sunshine. Kakuma, for those of you that aren't familiar with northern Kenya, is a place that receives an abundance of sunshine for a large amount of the year. I was there for only a few days. It happened to rain one of the days I was there. But the second day, the sun came out, and we saw a woman that was cooking maize and rice in one home, and then in another home, beans as well. So those kinds of energy-intensive foods that you would typically simmer over low heat for a long period of time, instead of having a fire that you're going to have to tend to and then you're going to have to be in the room with, you're able to just put your solar cook stove out, put your food inside, and allow it to cook your food while you go do other activities. So that's time saving, that health component are all critical factors that we heard time and time again. And then the other thing that we heard a lot of is how do we get more of these? Because I'm using this solar cook stove, this box oven, solar jiko, as they would often say. but my neighbors are still relying on wood or charcoal, and they see what I'm using, and they want one as well. So for us, that's what we're trying to do is work with our local partner to expand our impact, to take part in data collection that allows us to establish the effectiveness of using solar cook stoves, and to also include women that have been part of the program in previous years as trainers. So it's a train-the-trainer model. And from what we've seen, the women that have been using the cook stoves in previous cycles are able to speak in the language that the new families are able to understand, a common language. And they're also able to teach from a point of experience. So they're not just someone who is introducing a new technology. They're someone who is saying, I've been using this for the last year or sometimes 2 years. I've seen a benefit and I've seen an impact on my life, and I think this is useful for you, and this is what I do. This is how I use it. And so for us, especially for a technology that's new or unfamiliar, having somebody that is teaching from a place of experience allows for the new trainees, the new cook stove users, to experience success early on, and then that helps to ensure that they'll continue using those cook stoves going forward. We want to avoid a situation where somebody receives a cook stove and then is not able to cook their food to completion, or is not sure how to use it, and then after a week or two, they sort of start pulling back from using that cook stove. So when you have that training of the trainer, that trust with the trainer, and that collaboration with the communities that are participating in the programs that Solar Cookers International are working on, that allows us to see impact and to establish best practices that can be utilized to improve the effectiveness of the programs that we're implementing in Kenya.
Thanks, Keith. That was a great example. And maybe I can just take a minute to introduce, this is Rebecca. So she's one of those examples that Keith was talking about where she received a solar cooker and now is helping train other people. And I think it's really been a point of pride as well to have that knowledge to be able to share within the community, to be able to better support her family. She has 7 children and she's taking care of 3 orphans. And so if you can imagine how challenging that is to feed that many mouths, especially if they didn't have enough fuel to cook the food, because you can't eat food that's not cooked. And some refugees are left trading their food rations in order to get fuel. But with a solar cooker, they don't have to do that. So you're probably wondering, what really can you do? So I think there's a few different things. I know we're short on time, but we do have a lot of information on our website, solarcookers.org, including this report about countries' plans to address climate change, or their NDCs, and we want to celebrate countries, especially the Central African Republic, as well as many other listed here who have supportive policies in terms of clean cooking. So we're encouraging more countries to do that so we can open up more opportunities and empower more women like Rebecca with access to solar cooking, because one solar cooker can save a family from burning 1 ton of wood in a year, which is incredibly impactful in terms of climate and people's lives. So we do have a number of events still happening throughout COP. It's a very busy time. We're working very hard to advocate for solar cooking, share Rebecca's story, as well as many others. So we do invite you to attend any of these. We'll also share the recordings or the live streams as much as we possibly can. And then we do also encourage you to engage with Solar Cookers International, and there's so many different ways to do that. So we have a bunch of free information. We have the Solar Cooking Wiki, which is the world's largest online database. We actually have economic analyses, country by country, of the benefits that can come from solar cooking, because there's health, environmental, and economic benefits, as well as so many others. SCI does have consultancy services. We have a toolkit. You can find more information about our collaborators by country, as well as open source design plans within our wiki, solarcooking.org. We have an association, and we do encourage you to join the movement because you can be part of the solution. Solar cooking is a beautiful solution anywhere the sun shines, which I'm pretty sure the sun touches all of us. So you can make a solar cooker, you can buy a solar cooker, you can incorporate it into your work. It touches geography, environment, health, everything. That's why I love it. And as well, encourage your country leader to have supportive policies. But we do invite you to come speak with us afterwards, and thank you so much for your time and attention, and let's start cooking.